David Frangioni.
Oh, Lord.
Frangioni. Guy's a freaking genius on audio, visual.
And I don't mean to name drop, but the guy knows like everybody.
I mean, if you've ever heard rock music, a celebrity. I'm at the Heats game with this cat last night. I mean, everybody just keeps stopping in front of
LeBron's
me.
like, yo, let me give a shout out.
Yeah, Dave, what's up, LeBron? Wade comes over. Whoa, Dave.
My brother, David Frangioni. What else can I say? You're one of a kind. You're a unique individual with an entrepreneurial and philanthropy spirit unlike anyone I've ever met.
My story really starts when I lost an eye to cancer. Now, you might think that that type of trauma would put a kid in a deficit, that I've been blessed. Working with the likes of Aerosmith, Chad Smith, Kiss, Ozzy Osbourne, Journey, Styx, Olivia Newton-John, The Bee Gees, New Kids on the Block, Rascal Flatts, Ringo Starr, Shakira, Sting, Cher, Simon Cowell, Mana, Charlie Benante with Anthrax and Pantera, The Beckhams, Nico McBrain and Iron Maiden, mixing for the likes of Santana, Ariana Grande, Mary J. Blige, Fleetwood Mac, Boyz II Men, Seal, Diana Ross, projects for BET, MTV, and literally hundreds more. And that's just the beginning of the story.
We're living on the edge.
I graduated from kicking in drum heads to formal lessons at age 8, studying with some of the greatest drummers in the world. I immersed myself in all aspects of MIDI, music technology, and computers. Beta testing, programming, designing, configuring, integrating, and consulting. Helping to develop Pro Tools by creating Pro Tools training and certification while building the first all Pro Tools studio, which led to contributing to the first ever #1 Billboard hit to be entirely done in Pro Tools, with Ricky Martin and Desmond Child living La Vida Loca. Innovating digital sample libraries, drum libraries, surround sound and immersive audio mixing, cutting-edge home theater, integration and smart home technologies, designing and building recording studios, and being a lifelong audiophile. And having some incredibly unique experiences along the way, like when Volkswagen, Noel Lee, and Monster asked me to go to Germany to create the best-sounding stadium in Europe. Or appearing, as it turns out, while I was working with Ozzy and the Osbournes, ending up on some segments of the Osbournes TV show. Or taking my collecting obsession to Insight Editions, who honored me by publishing 3 books and collaborating with some of the greatest business minds that I truly admire. Thought leaders and world-class innovators, and many years of experience doing artist development and music business consulting. And through it all, I ended up being owner of Modern Drummer, which as a lifelong subscriber to the magazine, now I'm working on drum books with legends that I've admired my entire life. Starting a nonprofit foundation featuring the most historically significant drum museum in the world, while donating my time to worthwhile nonprofits to make a difference. These are all part of my purpose, my higher calling. Projects might all be different, the passion is the same each and every time.
Hey, welcome to Taking Flight. Let's give that video a round of applause, as well as David. I'm very excited about today's session. You guys are in for a real treat. This session is called Innovation Unleashed, a journey into music, technology, and entrepreneurship with Mr. David Frangioni. My name is Dr. Heather Dartez. I am the Director of Graduate Studies here at Full Sail University, and I am joined by my amazing co-host and friend.
Hey. Hi, everybody. I'm Brandon Edgerton. I am the Education Director for the Audio Arts Department here at Full Sail. And as Heather said, we are in for an amazing treat. What a true industry legend we have in our midst, Mr. David Frangioni. David, thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you guys. It's a pleasure to be here, everybody, and looking forward to today.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're so excited. Let's give him another round of applause. Yes,
Thank you.
Absolutely. So let's start off, David. And by the way, you guys are in for a treat. He has a ton of amazing photos to share with you guys today and some great videos. So I'm so excited to get into this. Yeah. Can we start off by hearing a little bit about your journey and how you became involved in the music, technology, and production industry?
Well, for me, it started with music. I really, as a really, really young person, I'm sure everyone here can relate to this to some extent, right? Whatever your passion is I just loved music and movies, really, from a very, very young age, like a baby, really. And I can't explain why, but I just have always loved music, and it started really early, and it just kind of overtook any other interests. And, there I am destroying a drum kit at an early 2 years old. And just really, all about the music early on, before any thoughts of career or any direction that it would take. Just an unbelievable passion. That's all I wanted to do as a kid, was either listen to music or, as I got a little bit into my childhood, play music, and it turns, in my case, the drums.
Wow. And so that passion led you into this amazing career. You probably had no clue at the time that you would end up going down this path, right?
Oh, no. Are you kidding? No clue. I mean, I didn't know what path I was going to go down. I grew up, from a very, very working class family. My mom and dad and my brother in Boston. And we didn't have any material means or even, we had a lot of love, but we didn't really have guidance. It wasn't a business family in that regard. So it was really just trying to figure out how to kind of survive every day. And then in the midst of that, to some extent, I think as a kid, music was a refuge. Like, whatever the challenges of my life happened to be as a kid, music was a way to just find joy and an expression that wasn't that. Right. So that's, I think in hindsight, that's one of the blessings of starting out life with some challenges, is that you find ways, if you're lucky enough to find healthy outlets, which I was in music, and that had a lot to do with my parents, it turned into something positive when you're kind of trying to figure out, what to do next.
Yeah. So you mentioned challenges, and one thing that you went through as a small child, you were diagnosed with eye cancer when you were only 2. Can you tell us a little bit about that impact on your life and how you overcame that challenge?
Yeah, it ended up becoming a huge part of my life, right? So at 2 years old, I got diagnosed with retinoblastoma, which is cancer of the eye. And what happens when that occurs in someone's life is your parents are told that you have 3 choices that are going to occur, and it's only one of the 3, right? You're either going to die, you're going to be totally blind, or you're going to be half blind. So thankfully, I got the 3rd choice. My card was dealt that I only became half blind. But what happened in that process is my whole childhood was filled with a lot of trauma, hospital visits, doctors, just a lot of things that were very disruptive to my health and my family life. And it ended up becoming the foundation to, I think I self-isolated a lot. When you go through something like that, there was a physical, kind of deformity, if you will, because, my prosthetic eye, and as a kid, as I said, we didn't have a lot of means. So it was kind of matched. I didn't look as natural as I might look today, but then it was really traumatic for a kid. It really kind of brought me into my own world. And in that world, I found music and created this fantasy land that I would work with people that I admired, like Aerosmith, Journey, and the Stones, and Fantasyland, and ended up becoming reality.
Wow.
But it started there, and I kind of foresaw at that point that I wanted to contribute something great and do something more than what my town kind of dealt most people. They kind of took normal jobs. They didn't follow any kind of passion. So I was very driven to follow my passion, and I was very driven to overcome those childhood challenges that, at that time they felt like they kind of happened all the time. You kind of feel like almost like a punching bag, like it's one thing after the other. But my parents were very insistent that you're not going to be a victim. You're not going to look at it like that. You're not going to say, poor David. You're going to say, okay, this is what it's like, and get back up and keep doing it. So it really helped my perseverance, which in the entertainment business, not just music, but anything entertainment, as we're all here, kind of that common thread that we love something in the entertainment business, whatever that creator inside of you is. Could be on the technical side, it could be on the writing side, the production side, the playing side, whatever it is. It's the music business and entertainment business is a very challenging business. All businesses are, but this one has a couple of extra challenges. So perseverance is a huge thing that you have to have. And the more you have it, the further that you can go in a shorter amount of time. Mm-hmm. So I learned that through the answer to your question of, going through that.
Yeah, and what an amazing and inspiring story. We could end this thing right now, honestly, with what you just said. I mean, it's such an incredible point, and some things that we could all kind of relate to. We all go through challenges and difficulties in life, but it really is about how you respond to those. And so, thanks so much for sharing that. It's such an inspiration, I'm sure, to our students and even myself personally. So, having been involved in the development of innovative music technology products, what are some of the most significant technological advances that have revolutionized music production during your career? Can you share some insights into the creative process behind these products and how they impact musicians and producers?
Sure. We'll stay high level of, my career started in the 80s, and the first kind of music technology lane that I got really passionate about was MIDI, MIDI, musical instrument digital interface, right? So at that time, it was new, and I just got immersed in it. I just saw these possibilities, and I think you'll find as we share stories that there's kind of a common theme, which is I got inspired by the possibilities, and I just followed through with them as much as I could. So in the case of MIDI, I got involved in kind of both sides of it, which is on one side, how the specification would evolve, talking to some of the early thought leaders of MIDI and just really immersing myself in it. On the other side, finding a business in it, becoming a MIDI consultant. When I got enough knowledge that I could help people with it, I started a consulting business, 1-800-345-MIDI. At the time, there was no Geek Squad, there was no internet, there was really no technical consulting of any kind. It's hard to believe today because there's so much of it and it's readily available from a phone. But back then it was a really, really big deal and really unique. So I kind of saw both sides of that. So it ended up being that MIDI and business were forming in my life at that time. Then that evolved, as you can see, like everything kind of evolved from one, it almost like morphed into the next thing. And in this case, MIDI went into sampling and sound tools, which is a natural fit. At the time, standalone samplers were really the only way that you could sample anything, RAM-based, of course, and then hard disk recording in the consumer world or the prosumer world was 2-channel sound tools. And I got so involved in it that I contacted the co-founders of DigiDesign at the time, now it's Avid, and they had made Sound Designer, and then they made Sound Tools. Anyway, that evolved into digital recording, open reel, right? So home studios, ADAT, DA88, large format consoles, but affordable. And so what ended up happening at that time is I saw this vision. Now we're in the late 80s, early 90s, and I saw this vision where we could do in a home studio, we being artists and creators like Tommy Shaw from Styx as an example, where we could create what was only possible in a commercial studio in a home studio. And I got really passionate about that. Again, I started working with manufacturers and then started a business where I would build home studios for artists. At that time, no one was doing that really. So if you see the ADATs there, those are M20s, the 20-bit version of the ADAT. That was a little later. That was about 10 years in. But this was really, really cutting edge. And it brought possibilities to the creative process that were previously not possible. Yeah. Home studios, to answer your questions, that evolved into drum sample libraries. At the time, they were only on CD. Then we innovated the CD-ROM. So now instead of having to sample everything from scratch, you could download and just load presets and get to work much faster and hear things much faster, right? Because the creative process, you have the power of a tool that we have, whether you're into audio, video, script writing, production, whatever you're into, you have these tools available. But then the speed at which you can access them and make them into something creative is just as important as what the tool can do. So I was really inspired by the power that this technology was starting to harness. Right. So when we went from sample libraries on CD to CD-ROM, we just cut the production time, 10 times faster. Then we went to, then Pro Tools came along. So I've been working with the guys from Sound Tools, as I shared. That turned into from stereo to multi-channel. Mm-hmm. And I did, one of the most significant Pro Tools studios at the time for Desmond Child. That's where we did Live in La Vida Loca later on. But what ended up happening was when Pro Tools got DSP power that was significant enough to be able to run an entire studio, that to me, I kind of saw a future like similarly to how I saw the home studio when we were with ADATs and Mackie consoles. I saw like a whole nother level of possibility. So I got really passionate about that. I recontacted the guys at DigiDesign and ended up launching a business that was to build Pro Tools studios. We ended up becoming the #1 Pro Tools integrator in the world. And we did over 1,000 Pro Tools studio integrations in a 5-year period, and it kind of really set the stage for where we are today, where having a Pro Tools studio is as common as, as wearing sneakers, right? But then it was really cutting edge, and we had to go through a lot of growing pains. But I had that vision that we would be able to do that, right? And so we had to kind of always push the envelope to have enough horsepower in the system with the control surfaces and then the software, and how that would all integrate in a way that we would have this virtual production environment. So that was another kind of innovation that I was fortunate enough to be kind of at the front of. And then that evolved into 5.1 surround music, which at the time was on CD. And now we're in the mid to late 80s and 90s. I'm sorry, mid to late 90s, and iTunes hadn't launched yet, and Napster and that whole world that really kind of shaped where we are today was just occurring. So we had we were doing music on CD, and we all thought. I remember we had these format wars. Right. I'm sure you remember that, right? Where we were thinking, is it going to be 20-bit or 24-bit? Right. Is it going to be CD or DVD-A? Like, it was so exciting, and it ended up being none of it. Right. So we ended up with MP3, and now finally we're going to land at immersive audio.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's like a history lesson in
absolutely
audio production.
I'm really not that old, everybody. I'm still kind of hip, even though I've lived a long life so far, thank God.
Yeah. So we have a video we're going to show here with immersive audio.
Yep.
I
always say it's the archer and not the arrow. I think the equipment's important, but I think the most important element of any immersive audio, or any mix for that matter, is the person at the console and the idea that they have. It's a great time to be involved in immersive audio.
Yeah, very exciting time.
And we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but immersive audio is, for those of you who are not on the audio side of things, that's essentially spatial audio. So when you go to an Apple device or you hear Dolby Atmos, that's immersive audio. Right.
Very cool, very cool. So you have worked with some really impressive people, like anybody and everybody in the business. So you've worked with Ozzy Osbourne, Aerosmith, Ricky Martin, Ringo Starr. For those of you that are young and don't know the Beatles, that's a Beatle. Shakira even, which is so cool. Can you share some of your favorite moments and anecdotes from your career in the music industry that highlight the unique and exciting aspects of your work, particularly memorable things and things that you've learned from it?
Yes. So I'm going to share a story. So this is the end of the story. Okay. I guess that's 9 records with Aerosmith.
Wow.
You guys are young, so hopefully you've heard some Aerosmith songs, right? For a while. Thank you.
If not, go back and listen, for sure. Yeah.
And so being a part of Crying and Crazy and Lovin' an Elevator and just Don't Want to Miss a Thing, and some just really turned out to be really great songs and have some impact. How that happened, the beginning, is what I want to share with you right now, because I was exactly your age, virtually everybody in this audience, when I'm going to share this story of how we got to this slide. And I was doing MIDI consulting, as I shared earlier, so that was the time period, we're in 89, and I got a call, and it was, as a MIDI consultant, you would get everything was phone calls. Remember, when there's no internet, there's not even really cell phones, if you can believe it. And I'm building my business, my career. I'm in Boston, and where Aerosmith's from, as many of you might know. And I would get calls. I was doing like 2 or 3 consulting gigs a day. So thank God, like every day was just, and a lot of them were parents that wanted their kids to learn something about a MIDI setup or semi-pros, a lot of cover bands. Like it was just, but I was learning tons. I was growing my resume, growing my knowledge base. And I get a call one day, and a gentleman says to me, I need help with this setup I just got. Heard it a million times. Here we go again. I have a routine. I take then no MapQuest, right? I would write directions down, get the whole scoop, and get the person's name. And when he said his name, he said, "My name's Tom." And I said, "Okay, Tom, what's your last name?" He said, "Hamilton." And instantly I thought to myself, because I was such a huge music fan, man, that's crazy. That's the bass player from Aerosmith's name. Like, how random is this? Like, but Tom Hamilton, he might as well have said Joe Smith. So I thought, okay, yeah, whatever. So anyway, next day, I show up at Tom Hamilton's house, and I'm walking up to the front door. Beautiful house, but not like a rock star mansion or anything like that. But as I'm walking to the house, the garage door's open. And I look over, and there's 2 Ferraris, and my heart starts beating like, oh, my God, you know what? I think this might really be Tom Hamilton. Like, I still haven't seen him. He opens the door. It's Tom Hamilton. Yeah. And I'm just awestruck because I was such a huge Aerosmith fan. And I'd seen them live, and I mean, this is like crazy. And I just couldn't believe it. All these things were going through my head. And I composed myself, and I thought to myself, okay, this is like in an instant. I thought, this is Tom Hamilton from Aerosmith. I'm a MIDI consultant. They're one of my favorite bands. He's never getting rid of me. He doesn't know it yet, but he's not ever going to get rid of David Frangioni. And that's what happened. Wow. 30 years later, I just turned that consulting 3-hour session into a lifetime of collaboration with the band and becoming their in-house engineer. And just really being passionate about being a part of whatever they were doing.
That's so great.
You said something in there that just kind of resonated with me. You were in that moment, you realized who he was, and you said what? You composed yourself. Yes. I mean, you find yourself in many of those moments at this fellow industry people where there's still a job to be done, right? And the reason that you're there to do what you do, you realize who that individual is in that moment, but you've put in enough time and gained enough experience to know how to pull yourself together and finish the job that you're there to do. So
you have to focus in that moment, right? And you have to, that's where, this is something took me a while to learn, but I'll share it with you guys because the whole point of doing, discussions like this today is to save you time. When you're young, you realize time is valuable, but you don't realize just how valuable it is because you actually have to have this is the oxymoron in it, right? Like the strange thing about it is that you have to actually have a lot of time in life to realize how valuable it is. So being young, you can only know so much, but as you keep going, you start getting more and more aware how valuable time is. So we want to save you time. So I'm going to save you time with this one as well, which is I was working on myself as much as I could. I was coming out of those traumas of childhood, and I was coming into having to just try to have my personal side together, right? It turns out, of all the imperfections that I have and all the challenges that I still have to overcome to this day, I've never done drugs, not even tried them. I've never drank alcohol. I've never smoked cigarettes. It's true, though.
Yeah.
Well, what the applause are for, in my opinion, thank you for that, but the applause are for just that concept, right? So each of us, the more you can not introduce things that get in your way, the better. And so my parents, because I played a lot of gigs as a drummer as a kid, much younger than I even should have, they were really insistent when I was in those adult environments, but I was a kid. I was 12, 13 years old, and everybody else is 10 years older or more. They were really pounding away at me, just be a good kid. Don't do drugs, don't drink, don't smoke. And my dad died of lung cancer. He was a nonstop smoker, but he didn't want to see that happen to me. So it made such an impact that I didn't do any of those things, didn't even try them because I didn't even want the allure. Like, what if I like it? Then what? Like, I didn't even want to go there. So I was very fortunate that I was not a part of that. And that, I think, had a big impact on when I met Tom, to your point, like I had enough of kind of a solid, kind of stance that I was ready to focus, right? You can't get ready to focus when you need to focus. Right. You have to get ready to focus ahead of time. That's why it's called preparation, right? You got to prepare, and then when the moment happens, then you're ready. And that's really a big deal. And of all things, I mean, that's Joe, Steven, and me during Get a Grip. Aerosmith's known, they're called the Bad Boys of Boston, right? Steven and Joe wear T-shirts that say Toxic Twins because their drug habits are legendary. They've gone past them, but they had them for a long time in their life. So having me on the other side of that was an interesting dynamic because I would be working with the band, and sometimes Steven would come over to me and he would look at me and he would make this thing with his hands and he would go, he was doing it around my face, and he would go, I don't understand. Like, how is it that you don't get involved in it? Like, it was just such a foreign concept for how he grew up. And I think that created a different dynamic that was really powerful in being able to collaborate.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah, amazing. So, you've done a lot of different things. We've talked about several of them so far. You've worked with a lot of amazing artists along the way. Can you discuss those roles and in which capacity you've worked with them?
Well, we'll pick three. Aerosmith we talked about as one of them. 9 albums, built their home studios, was in-house engineer. The 90s was really my time where I would show up there every day at Joe or Steven's studio, work together. Built live recording rigs, sampling, programming, CD-ROM games, pinball machines, like you name it. A day in the life of Aerosmith would be, you walk into the studio and they go, hey, can you do a cut of Dude Looks Like a Lady? And I'm like, yeah, what's it for? Oh, there's this movie coming out next year called Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh, yeah. I remember that movie.
And then it becomes part of pop culture. Right. Beavis and Butthead, and just a lot of cool, memorable moments. I worked with Ozzy for 10 years. I was very blessed to get called by them. And what was cool about that is I ended up building Ozzy's first home studio. We talked about this earlier. When you work with a legend like Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath, if you can be a part of anything that he does that's a first, it's nearly a miracle, really. I mean, it just happened. I couldn't believe he never had a studio before, but he didn't. So I built his first home studio and his second. And while I was around that time of working with Ozzy and the Osbournes, they were filming their TV show, The Osbournes. So I ended up on seasons 3 and 4, like little bits here and there. I think we have a clip of it. Yep. That was the most PG clip I could find, guys. I'm sorry. And then Chick Corea, who is not with us any longer, but an inspiration of mine. Chick Corea and the Electric Band, Dave Weckl and Chick and me. And so inspired by Chick Corea. And to work with him and to get to know him and be a part of his world and contribute was just, I'll never forget it. It's a true blessing. Incredible.
Yeah. Wow. So when you look back on your career, obviously there are things that prepared you for where you are today, opportunities along the way. Are there moments that stand out as being pivotal? And how do you recommend students navigate making those right decisions that help put them where they want to be?
Well, I don't think this will be new guidance for any of you, I think, but it's important, so I'll state it because it's so important, and I think it's something you should take away from today. And that is that everything leads to the next thing as long as your goal is always focused on it. So in my case, starting with MIDI consulting led to Aerosmith, as we shared. That led to working on home studios, which led to EQ Magazine. EQ Magazine, pre-internet, was the way that home studios were. That was the community, right? There were trade shows around it and a lot of articles, and it was just a huge community that you were able to make impact and contribute through. And then that led to the home studio world, led to my collaboration with Roger Nichols, another dear friend, someone who's not with us any longer, but Roger won 7 Grammys. He did all the Steely Dan records. Incredible innovator, invented the Wendell drum machine replacement. I mean, just we could go on, and we could do a whole talk just on Roger. But we met through EQ, and I was a huge fan of his, and we became friends up till I was with him till his last, till the end of his life. We were very close, and that led to starting an integration business, which the whole purpose behind the integration business, in this case Audio One, was to find a way to do more collaborations than one person could do. I didn't start out my life and career thinking I had any interest in the integration business, but it turns out I did, because that was a way to go beyond what one person could collaborate on by having a team and overseeing it. And so my point of all, of these steps is that when you're going along your journey, be eyes wide open and stay focused on your goal and see where it's kind of leading you and be open to that. There's a saying, Wayne Dyer, the late Wayne Dyer, used to always say, jump and the net will appear. And what it basically means is, don't wait till you realize you shouldn't have waited. And follow, this passion and this goal that you have. And then perseverance, which we talked about earlier, kind of keeps you going. There's a lot of reasons to stop. Right. But perseverance will give you reasons to not stop.
Absolutely.
It's great advice.
Indeed.
So many of our students are entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs, and you have entrepreneurial experience. So I would love for you to share a little bit about the challenges that you faced of starting your own business, operating your own business, and how you overcame them, and any advice that you have for our students who have that as an aspiration.
Well, how many entrepreneurs we have in the audience? Raise your hand. Come on, if you're an entrepreneur, be proud. Yeah. All right, well, we have a decent amount. Okay, the rest of you don't realize you're entrepreneurs.
Exactly.
Because in the entertainment business, you're working for yourself. That's an entrepreneur.
That's right.
Even if you have a company that hires you, it's still you. So the key thing is, and it took me a while to learn this, I used to think if I was good at one thing, I was good at everything. So, okay, yeah, if I do a good job as an engineer, then everything else will work itself out. No, it won't. When you start a business, the answer to your question is, as an entrepreneur, you have to understand business. You have to learn the business side, at least enough to be able to get through it. Right. And I made a lot of mistakes. I still make mistakes. I make them too often, unfortunately, but I try to learn from them. And a lot of the mistakes that I made in business were the mistakes of, just thinking that because I knew this, that would work, and then it didn't. Okay. And then when you go back and learn and study and do it the right way, right, then you realize, oh, okay, now I understand. So experientially, yes, you want to make mistakes, you want to learn, trial by fire, as they call it, but there's also a lot to learn by reading and by having mentors. And you guys are in a really amazing situation here, because you have this community. You look around, anybody who looks around and anybody else here, everybody's like-minded. Like, we're all here for a reason, and it happens to be the same reason. That's powerful. Yeah. So you have this community, you have this network, and I'm sure there's people from, of course, goes without saying, from the instructors all the way to the student body that you can learn from. Right. And that's the key thing, is that you have to learn entrepreneurship. You have to learn. It's not the same skill set as I'm a great video editor, I'm a great script writer, I'm a great beat maker. Yeah, okay, you have to be if that's the career you want to have. But then in order for that career to manifest and be successful, the business side of it has to have a certain level together. And even if you don't like the business side of it, then find somebody who does, who's going to help you and that you trust, because it has to get done, or you will not realize the rewards that are possible if you have the business side together.
Absolutely.
And it's a work in progress. I'm still learning. You'd be shocked at how many things I learn every day.
Yeah, indeed. Some amazing wisdom there. Hope you guys are taking notes, right? Good. So you have a pretty amazing foundation, the Frangioni Foundation. How about we take a look at the video to learn a bit more about it?
Okay, check it out. Frangioni Foundation is something that I'm very passionate about. I've been involved with various foundations over the years. I wanted to do something that I had as a vision that wasn't being addressed. The core values and fundamentals that I want to bring to youth through mentoring, music, and motivation fuses faith and drumming and business and technology. The outcome is curriculum that helps children learn those principles and apply it to their career in any aspect of life.
To have that kind of faith in a dream and a vision. In our art form, this is our Mona Lisa. This is one of a kind. This is a work of art. It's amazing.
We're loving that. We are loving that.
I recommend it to everybody, not just somebody who wants to be a drummer, but just musicians in general.
Along with it, I built a drum museum, which we call Hit the Deck Drum Experience Center. That is filled with iconic drum kits that were stage played and artist owned, amazing drum kits. Took me a lifetime to be able to assemble this museum essentially.
Well, this is a mind-blowing experience. Some of the best drummers in the world, their kits are right here.
I mean, you've got to see this because these are things which are just so precious.
To see all this history, like representing our culture.
To be so close to equipment to really help shape modern music.
There is not a room on the planet that vibrates as much as this room does, man.
I want kids at a time when they need it most to be able to go in and find the mentor and the inspiration at Frangioni Foundation, similar to how I found as I grew up. Those are the people that help inspire the lives of the next generation of all the givers and all the inspiration that the generation after them will have. You're going to change people's lives for the better.
Yeah.
Thank you. Frangioni Foundation, and I want to acknowledge my wife, Carolina, who's here today. Let's give her a round of applause. She's a big part of everything I do, but Frangioni Foundation is one of them, and it takes takes both of us to really make any of this stuff really happen.
Absolutely.
It is really impressive the way that you've been able to pull all your resources together and turn that into a way to give back. It's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your role with Modern Drummer magazine. And I know growing up as a kid, that was a magazine every drummer I knew would subscribe to. Yeah. You know, it was just amazing. So you have experience writing for publications in EQ, Surround Pro, Mix, and even Rolling Stone. That's really impressive. Do you feel that writing was helpful for your career, and how does that tie into what you're doing now with Modern Drummer?
Well, writing was definitely helpful, writing and learning, right? Modern Drummer's a 47-year-old brand, which is almost as old as I am, so obviously I didn't start the magazine, right? But Carolina and I bought it a few years ago. The founder, Ron Spagnardi, passed away years ago, and his widow, Isabel, approached us and said, we need a steward for this magazine, ideally a technology-minded business person who loves the drums.
Okay.
There you go.
It's kind of an ironic combination, right? So I think the list was rather short of who they were going to call for that. So we got the call, and we thought that the brand was important enough to, keep going. The writing side of it is important. I think the business side of it, what we spoke about earlier, be good at business, that's the most important thing because it's running the company. And so whether it's a drum magazine community brand like Modern Drummer, or whether it's an integration firm, or whether it's education, or whatever the business is, learning how to run that is really important. We have a little clip kind of celebrating the history of Modern Drummer. It's very short, with some of the greatest drummers in the world who are part of our community.
Great.
Hi, this is Hal Blaine.
Hey, it's Kenny Aronoff. Hey, this is your brother, Nard McWalden. Quick shout out, thanks to Modern Drummer.
Modern Drummer. I want to give a shout out to Modern Drummer for always keeping the drummers in the loop.
It keeps me informed, it's inspirational, it's educational, I read all the articles.
40 years of information, education, and inspiration.
I'd like to thank Modern Drummer magazine for keeping us updated on what's happening in the world of drums.
Insightful, amazing articles and drum nerdery that you've given me over the years. Couldn't have made it without you. Love you guys.
How important is it? It's important as shit.
The articles are great. Everything about the product, everything about drummers and percussion. Read it.
All right. Thank you. A lot of great drummers there. A lot of great drummers. Some not with us anymore, but they're part of the 47 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So a bit of a look at the past. Let's talk a little bit about the future of the music industry for a bit. And we touched on this a little bit earlier. You were one of the pioneers for surround music mixing in the 90s. Today, you're mixing quite a bit in immersive audio. What effect has immersive audio had so far on our industry?
Huge. You know, what the difference between 5.1 surround music and immersive today, besides all of the obvious sonic benefits, right, and what we can do, just having a 714 format as opposed to 5.1, and having it virtual instead of disc-based. I mean, that's a lot right there. But really, the game changer was when Apple adopted Atmos for spatial audio. That changed the whole thing, because now music in surround was a niche thing, right? Even when we were trying to do it in the 90s, it was niche. And now it's mainstream because it's on over 1 billion devices. And you know, it really ups the game of how we can experience content.
Indeed. Indeed. So as a renowned expert in studio design and innovation for what we call today's home studio, what are some key considerations for creating an ideal recording environment, and how has this evolved over time? How can aspiring musicians and producers like we have here make the most of their available technology to create professional quality music?
Well, the key thing with a studio is, I think in some cases we've gone too far, knowing that, like, there's one of my early home studios, as an example, with samplers and ADAT, et cetera. In those days, right, we needed that equipment. Those were the tools that were accessible and that we had. Of course, it got a lot higher end than what you see in those pictures, but that was like the home studio, kind of the creme de la creme home studio. It's evolved to the point where you can do amazing work on a laptop, right? So the opposite extreme. There's a beautiful studio I did. That was at Shaq's house in Beverly Hills. That was for the person who bought his house, famous Japanese artist. Beautiful studio. And, you know, so you see these beautiful rooms. And the point to that is that somewhere in the middle is where the studio really belongs in most cases. It's music dependent, right? If you're doing electronic music, you still need a proper room to monitor in, but it's a different criteria than if you're recording like that. There's a live room I built for a client in Massachusetts. You know, they were doing rock music and live-based music, so the live room was really crucial. The control room's always crucial. You have to have that's Ozzy's second studio that we did in Hidden Hills. You know, that's a really great sounding control room. And, you know, he did 2 records there and a number of other projects and Black Sabbath stuff. And, you know, the room matters. It's really important to have a professional monitoring environment, not just rely on headphones, even though, of course, headphones are crucial because that's how most people hear the music. You have to reference that. But you also need a proper environment. So I think being aware, don't base what you're going to work on just what you have. Base it on what you need, and then find that solution. Now here, you guys are in a great situation because you have world-class rooms that you can work in, so you have that available. When you leave school, they're not always available as readily, right? But you'll develop a point of reference here that you hear the difference between listening in a room, maybe your bedroom, right? Just listen through speakers. You'll hear it. It's going to be affected by whatever that room sounds like. Then go into AirPods and headphones, then go to a world-class listening environment such as the ones on campus, then go somewhere else and listen to the same music. That's the key. We call it reference songs. Has to be the same song because you won't get a frame of reference otherwise. So you pick a couple of songs that are going to be your reference songs, and listen to them in all these different environments and pick up what's different. Because it's the same song, same mix, same version. Everything's got to be identical in your reference except for the room for this, for what I'm describing to be effective. And it will be. And then you go to these different places, and then you'll understand how the studio is as a tool. Because the room itself, to answer your question, is a part of the equation.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You guys got that, right? Yeah. Excellent.
So one of the things that I've experienced, in my lifetime, and I've seen, and it's just going to continue to evolve, is our music industry has undergone so many significant changes. I mean, really significant changes as it relates to distribution and streaming. Yeah. So you co-founded All Access IDA, which is Inspire and Develop Artists, 10 years ago. How do you see the future of music business models? And what advice do you have for emerging artists that are trying to navigate this really fast-moving landscape?
Well, it's a deep question, right? And there's a lot to unpack to really get into that. So I'll just stay very concise and very high level. When I co-founded All Access IDA, at that time, it was a 10-day program, and then it went to 7, then it went to 5, then it went to 2. But the whole idea of it, the reason we kept shrinking it is we kept finding more efficient ways to kind of get what we really wanted to teach and impact. Because look, we learn lessons every single day, but we don't remember them, right? The ones we remember are the ones that are deep down in our soul. So we wanted to get to that point where artists would leave, whether it was the 10-day or 2-day, and they would have some things that they never lost, that were with them forever. And part of that was focusing on their art, being great performers and singers, and songs. And I think we have a quick clip where I was talking to one of the groups about their songwriting. They had written songs during the development session that they were then going to perform that night, literally having written it like the same day. You can appreciate that, Brandon, from your A&R days. Like, it was a deep dive.
Right.
So let's play that clip for a quick second. There's a big difference between a song and a hit song. So our goal is to create with them and for them a hit song. And we feel there's a lot of potential hit songs tonight. We certainly want all of our artists, prior and current, to accomplish that goal. But remember that every original song you hear tonight, and this is very significant, so stay with me and then we're going to start the show. Every original song you hear tonight didn't exist 5 days ago. And tonight, give it up. Think about that. And you're going to hear 9 potential hit songs that didn't exist 5 days ago, and tonight they're not only written and recorded and being performed, but the artists are knocking it out of the park with those songs, which is the reason, if you see a music stand, it's impossible to write and record and learn that song without needing to. So the point of that clip is that what mattered 10 years ago when distribution was entirely different than it is today still is exactly what matters in this moment, which is you got to create a great song.
Yeah.
Whatever genre, doesn't matter if it's electronic, vocal, jazz, rock, pop, whatever it is, it's still all about the music and the song. Then in terms of the distribution, and to answer your question on the business side of it, I mean, it's stating the obvious, but we're in a place now, and it's just going to keep growing and growing and growing, where we're direct to consumer, right? So it's hard to believe that, years ago, for your music to have any potential for an audience, you needed a corporation to decide that they were going to help you and then release, quote unquote, the song, and then it would get some kind of distribution. It would get into record stores as there were in the day, et cetera, or even when it became virtual in iTunes, it was still controlled by labels, et cetera. Now you have an idea, you have music, you create it, you envision it, you produce it, and it's out in front of the potential of 5, 6, 7 billion people. Now, will they all see it and hear it just because you put it out there? Of course not. There's a whole strategy and art form to that. But the point is, it's possible, where it wasn't even a possibility years ago. So it's just going to keep growing and growing, but don't lose sight that it still comes down to the what's being delivered, right? How good is the song? How compelling is the delivery and the artist? How interesting is the message and the creative and the visual? All of those things, because we have audience doesn't make the art form better necessarily unless you do that and that's what you create. So stick to the foundation of I'm going to really create something great and know that the potential out there is virtually limitless.
Absolutely. Wholeheartedly agree with that. So we've got a room full of students here and many more watching us online and with this dream in their hearts of getting to do this as a career. So I'd love for you to share a bit more advice for them. So for those aspiring to have a career at the intersection of music and technology, what advice or insight can you offer based on your own experiences?
Well, I think it applies to any business. I'm going to share a couple of things. The first thing is you got to find what you love to do and follow that and be really committed to following that passion. And I'm going to share something that took me a long time to learn as well, but man, is it true? And that is everything's hard. People say, David, but when I look at your schedule, it's the hard work, man. Like you're up early and you work late and you work weekends and like that's the schedule. It's hard. I'm like, yeah, it was hard being poor and having nothing. That was hard too.
That's a great point.
And I have news for everybody. Hard doesn't go away. There's no escape from hard. So you choose, do you want it to be hard and accomplish something that you really are passionate about and that you believe in and that represents your time here on earth? Or do you want it to be hard and just grind through and serve somebody else that you probably don't even have any connection to? Never mind, it doesn't represent your place here. Right. So I chose the hard that fulfills what my destiny is on earth. And it changes every day, and it evolves, and it's filled with many flaws. But that's David Frangioni for good and for bad. And I just try to bring as much good of it as I can out and just learn from my mistakes and just choose that hard because everything's hard. I got news for you, man. Everything's hard. Yeah. So don't think that when you see people succeed that that's for them and that's because they put hard work in. Your life's hard too. It's probably no harder than theirs, but you got to make different choices and you got to make different decisions to go out there and do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where the perseverance comes in, right? I mean,
yeah, perseverance is an easy word to learn, right? But it's really hard to do.
Yeah.
And so when life is throwing you a lot of curveballs, it's not easy to stay, all right, I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna do it again. And I'm not saying I do that every day. I have days where I just want to stay under the covers and forget the world exists.
Sure. Yeah.
But at some point I got to just get real and say, you know what? My goals are bigger than my fears. And I'm going to just get out there, screw it. Let me just go for it. And what's the worst that can happen, right? Life's hard. All right, well, that's already the case.
Right.
Life's tough. Well, that's already the case.
Yeah.
I failed 1,000,000 times. So if it happens again, if I don't do it, I have no chance of success.
Right.
So I have to go out there and I have to just try to make it happen.
That's great
so
advice.
Good.
Very good advice. Yeah, that deserves.
Yeah, thanks.
So I want to give our audience a heads up that we're going to be accepting some questions from the audience after these next two questions. So please start thinking of what you would like to ask David.
It's the whole reason I'm here is the Q&A.
Yeah, it's all for you guys.
Yep.
It's for you guys.
It really is. That's the whole purpose.
So start thinking about your questions. And I know they'll be bringing a mic around. And we're also accepting questions from our online audience. So those of you that are joining us online, please make sure you put them in the chat area so we can share those with David. So David, so much of your success has been built on relationships. And so here at Full Sail, I'm sure you guys all have heard it a million times how important networking is, right? Are you sick of it yet? We've drilled it into them. But I would love for you to share a little bit about how important relationship building has been for you throughout your career, and how any tips that you have for them on how to build solid relationships with other people.
Well, it's true. It is really important. And, when we shared earlier the story about how I started out as an isolated, self-isolated kid, it's kind of the opposite of networking, right? So I started my life in a shell and really just was me, myself, and I. And as I got older, I didn't really change that much, but I became more aware that collaboration was a group effort, right? So I had to, by default, kind of come out of my shell. And it was very forced for a long time. It was not natural for me to connect like that. I really just wanted to be in my own world for the first part of my life. But I worked on it, and I just looked at, okay, the whole purpose here is to collaborate and to serve, right? That was genuinely what was in my heart, still is. So that required me to grow out of my shell. It required me to get out of what they call your comfort zone. And then I ended up building up kind of a strong network. And now my network is to the point where, all my projects and collaborations come from people in my network, right? Not much happens like outside of that. It's really, Ringo Starr was a referral from, Ricky Martin. Ozzy Osbourne was a referral from Ringo Starr. Like, that's how it happens, right? And so I think networking is hugely important, and I think you should be genuine about it. Right. I forced myself to connect, but what I forced myself was not to be fake. It was to genuinely try to open up, which was very challenging for me to do. But eventually you get to the point where you can open up. You can kind of open your heart up, and you can start to connect with people. And then you learn incredible things about other people that inspire you and that make life kind of what it really can be. Like, I didn't realize all that I was missing by kind of being in my own world. It was safe, but it wasn't inspiring. Yeah. And when I really connected with people and collaborators, people who became friends, clients, mentors, students, life is like a whole nother world, and it's really powerful. So networking is huge. You guys are in a place where networking is just the natural thing to do, but you've got to be open-minded to it. You got to be aware of it, that your creative possibilities from a career perspective, which start with the art form itself, are all about the rest of the community, right? You're not going to hire yourself. Someone's going to believe in you or need you for a role, right, and you're going to get an opportunity to practice what your dream is and what your passion is. And when that happens, it's because of a relationship at some level. So the more of them you have, the more potential there is for you to impact the world and have greater collaborations. And sometimes I take that whole talk that I just said, and I just take out my iPhone and I go, here's how important it is. And I have 18,000 contacts in my iPhone. Right. I go, here, this is how important networking is. And people go, oh my God, I didn't even know that were that many people that you could have in the technology business. But it's true. It's really about building that network and doing it through trust, coming through as a professional where people know that when they bring you into a project, you're going to come through for them. You're going to deliver. So that speaks louder than any promotion or any of that stuff. Right. You got to let the work do the talking. Like, how did he or she do on this project? Mm-hmm. And that's what will speak to the next possibility and opportunity. And that's how the network grows.
I love it. Love it. Consistency, right?
And consistently come through.
Yep. Yeah. Awesome. So the last question before we go to our Q&A, what traits or professional skills do you think are most important for being successful in this industry?
Be reliable, be skilled, really take your game to the highest level, have a great attitude. I read in a book, but I also had a mentor that told me this when I was really young. They said attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. Mm. Attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. And it's really true, because attitude is our view on something. It's personal to us, because we can see this and we can go, that sucks, or that's great. And it's the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know, in its form, it's exactly the same. Nothing's changed but our perspective.
Yeah.
So attitude is really huge, and you've got to see, you know, challenges and setbacks as much as you can in the moment as an opportunity to grow and learn, and see things. The biggest thing that I see when I'm mentoring, especially young, ambitious creators, is that they hit an obstacle and they see it as a brick wall. They see it, and it might be a big obstacle, but they see it as something like, they didn't answer the phone. We can't, I don't know where to send the file. They didn't answer, so we're screwed. That's it. What are you, wait, what are you talking about? We're not, this is the beginning, not the end, right? But the mind says, this is how we're supposed to go, but it went this way. So now, here's my conclusion. My conclusion on anything, and I know there's no perfect world, so I'm not trying to be a Pollyanna and say, you know, everything's great. It's not. But I will tell you what is consistent, as you talked about consistency, is that my conclusion on anything that I do, especially in the professional world, specifically in this case, is the result is the conclusion. So if we needed to get a file to somebody and call at 1 and find out who to send it to, and you call at 1 and the phone's disconnected, that's the beginning of the process now. Okay, it's not going to be easy, but we're going to get the file to that person. The conclusion of the story with a lot of people, not just young people, just people in general, is I tried, I failed, so then what next? My conclusion to a story is we tried, we failed, and we got the file to the person. Yeah. And that's the end of the story. So you've got to be focused. There's a great philosophy. It's called results, not reasons. When I heard that, it changed my life. Yeah. I heard that a long time ago. I literally say it to myself every day. There's something that comes up that is a reason to not be able to get to a result. And I just say that to myself, and I put it into action. Results, not reasons. Yeah. And then I find ways that lead you to, okay, so how do I get the result then? Right. Because this is setting me back, that's setting me back. This is like, there's just setbacks. Yep. But I just stay so focused on the result. Drives people crazy. They think I'm crazy. Sometimes they even think, oh, the guy's a jerk. Like he just doesn't understand. It can't happen. You're right. That I don't understand, because it can always happen. So you just have to have the perseverance to put context to the word that you make it happen. Yeah.
That is excellent advice.
And it's hard, right?
Yeah.
Back to hard. Right. You want easy? It doesn't exist unless you just want to do nothing. Right.
Really, really great advice.
That's great.
Well, now we get to take some questions from you guys. So if anybody has a question, you can raise your hand. We'll bring a mic around. Or actually, are you bringing the mic down to us? I think you. Yeah. So you guys can form a line at the mic if you have questions.
I know how you mentioned Ringo Starr got you segued into meeting and working with Ozzy. Can you go into more detail about that?
Yes. Mark Hudson was working with Ringo, and he's a great artist, songwriter. He co-wrote Living on the Edge, so we met during the Aerosmith Get a Grip sessions. We became great friends. I built a home studio for him. We still work together to this day. He was actually part of All Access IDA. And he started working with Ozzy. And he called me one day and he said, there's a chance Ozzy might want a studio, and if he does, I'm going to refer you. And I just thought to myself, man, that's just like a dream come true. I was a huge Ozzy fan, huge.
Yeah, I grew up listening.
So I watched the first season of the Osbournes, and I remember watching it and thinking to myself, this is the most surreal thing in the world. Like, we have a front row seat, because at the time reality TV was like a really novel, entertainment concept. And so we were back in 2002-ish. And so I watched the show, and I just got to learn kind of about the Osbournes and see their house. And as a fan, it was just awesome. And so one night, about 6 months later, I'm at Sal's Pizzeria in Hollywood, Florida. So don't ask me why I remember these stupid random things, but being Italian, I think it's because it involves food. And it was 8:30 at night. And I get a phone call, and I thought it was a joke. A British gentleman, I answered the phone and said, hello? He goes, David Frangioni. I said, yes, that's me. And he said, could you hold for Mr. Osbourne, please? And it went by so fast, I thought, did he just say hold for Mr. Osbourne? And all of a sudden, Ozzy, which, he has a very identifiable voice.
Yeah.
I'll do like a hack impression, right? Because we've all heard him. But all of a sudden, like Ozzy, and when he gets excited, he kind of mumbles a little bit. And he went, Dave. And I said, yes. And he said, it's Ozzy. And I thought to myself, this is either the best impression and wind up that anybody's ever done on me, or I'm really talking to the Prince of Darkness. Like, it was surreal. And I had already worked with some great artists, so it wasn't like out of the question, but it still seemed crazy to me. And he goes on and he starts talking about just launches into a conversation about this studio he envisioned. And he was excited, and he was and I was trying to follow it, and he was on his jet flying to an Ozfest date. So it was hard to hear. It was like rumbling in the back, and he's going, and I'm listening, and and the phone's cutting out, and he finishes, and he goes, okay, thanks. And he hands the phone back to the assistant. And the assistant says, oh, Mr. Frangioni, did you get all that? I went, no, I have no idea what he just said, but what do you need? He goes, we need you to build a studio, mate. I said, when? He said, can you be in LA tomorrow? I said, yes. What time? He said, what time can you be there? I said, and I thought to myself, I had flown to LA a lot, so I knew the flights, and I was like, how about noon? Noon the next day. This was 8:30 on a Monday. Tuesday at noon, I was driving up to the gate of the Osbournes in a rental car, and it was like Beatlemania. For anybody who's ever studied Beatlemania, it's when fans go absolutely crazy over an artist, and they go in droves, and it's like madness. And that's what it was like because of the show. So I pull up to the house, and there's like 50 people all congregated outside his gate because it's like it was so famous. It was weird. And that I hadn't seen much of. I'd been in a lot of shows, but I hadn't seen that kind of excitement firsthand. And I got up to the gate, and all of a sudden, the people part. It's like the parting of the Red Sea. And I drive through to the gate, and everybody's wondering, he's not going to get through. He's one of us. And I'm thinking, yeah, I am. I'm just one of you. But the gate opens, and I go through. People start chasing me for an autograph. Wow. It was insane. And so I go through, meet Ozzy that day, and we worked together for 10 years.
That's amazing.
That's wild.
It's very cool.
Thank you.
Sorry for the long story, guys.
Yeah,
I'm trying to make them short.
So we have a question now from our audience online, I should say. What's one of your favorite bands to work with, and why?
I love working with all of them, and I'm not just saying that to be politically correct. I really, truly, I have the most memories with Aerosmith. That's the band I spent the most time with. And, in that case, it's because I was such a huge fan, am a huge fan, and they were heroes of mine as rock stars. It's people that I really love their music. But I'll tell you, the concept of a band is kind of a dying concept. Brandon, you have a very storied and successful career in A&R, so I'm sure everybody here knows at Full Sail. So you know firsthand, like that, the single artist is alive and well. But the concept of a band, and especially a rock band, is really a dying breed. I hope it comes back. I love rock bands. I love the energy of it. I love the bands I not only work with but listen to. My son Felipe has a great band called Baron, at the band Baron. That's Felipe right there. Give him a round of applause. He's a great drummer.
Y'all check him out.
And I'll tell you, working with that band, an unknown up-and-coming band, but working with that band is awesome because it's just, there's something about the energy. When a band sounds good, there is nothing like it. And I remember the first time I heard Aerosmith working with them, right? Not seeing them at concert where it's very, it's put together. They have a set list. It's like you're not really, it's just like, it's all worked out, right? But I walk into the rehearsal room for the first time ever. Never, I was this close for the first time in my life to the band. And they start playing one of their songs. And I had been in a lot of bands up until that point myself. And I realized how much my band sucked at that moment, right? That I was listening to them going, oh my God, this you can't describe that energy when a band is firing on all cylinders. And man, there's nothing like it.
Right.
Hi, my name is Deja. I graduate next month with my bachelor's in entertainment business. So I was just wondering for your foundation, is it local? And also, do you have any opportunity for students?
Well, thank you. That's great. Good luck with that. That's exciting. What part of entertainment business are you looking at?
Honestly, I'm really interested in music and also film. So I was thinking like shooting music videos, but honestly, right now, I just want to get my foot in the door and see like what type of opportunities can open up for me.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, the foundation's based in South Florida. It's there are times when there are opportunities. It kind of cycles around based on Carolina and my schedule. But I will tell you that what you want to do with entertainment business is find a mentor. Find somebody that you look up to in that lane, whoever it is, whatever it is, and get as close as you can to that entity, let's say. Let's say it's a law firm that's representing a lot of different, or a music manager who's representing a lot of artists that you really are inspired by, and you'd love to be a part of that team. That's where you want to look. And you may not get to the one that you set your sights on at first, but eventually you'll get there. And you may have to go through steps. You may not be ready, or they may not be looking for team members, or whatever the circumstances are. Don't let that discourage you. And go out and find the closest thing you can. It might mean taking, let's say they're in Los Angeles. It might mean going to LA and working for somebody totally different, but now you're getting closer. You're in the city, right? And then what'll happen is you'll find that what you put your mind to is what will happen. And you will eventually get to wherever you thought. And when you get there, you're going to go, man, I could never have mapped this out. You don't know now that you have to go from this one to that one to this one, and then this has to go sideways, and then you have to leave that job. Like you'll never see it until you get to the destination. And then you look back and you go, oh my God, wow, I'm glad that I didn't stay at that company. I'm glad that they fired me, or they told me, that I had to work with this other person that I didn't really like, but I ended up learning from. Like all these things that happen, just stay singularly focused on the goal. And thank you for caring enough about the foundation to put that forward. That's very gracious. Give her a round of applause. That's really sweet. Thank you.
That's
Big
awesome.
heart.
Yeah. Great question. Let's take a quick question from online real quick. So what devices or DAW do you use for your spatial audio mixes?
We use Pro Tools through the Atmos renderer. We have an S6 control surface, Genelec monitoring, 714, so 4 overheads, 7 speakers, 3 in the front, 2 in the sides, 2 in the back, and a subwoofer for the 0.1. We actually have another subwoofer that I use to extend the fronts to full range. So, but it's technically a 714 setup. And we monitor through a DADMAN and through the S6, Pro Tools MTRX and MTRX Studio, and a plethora of gear and plugins. But Pro Tools is the tool that I use to do all the mixes and then generate the Atmos file.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Y'all got that right, all my audio students out there.
Write it all down.
Get in the Pro Tools, get that workstations class.
Yep.
Another question.
How you doing? I'm Dominique Hunter. And my question is, as a music artist studying entertainment business, it's hard for me to figure out like exactly what I want to do in the business, because like being an artist always calls me back. So it's like I'm always trying to be, shooting my own music video or recording my own songs. So, I'm connected in all the industries, like networking wise. I've been networking everywhere. But do you have any advice on that can help me find my direct niche in the music business behind the scenes?
Well, it's following your passion and not trying to judge this is good or this is bad, but balancing kind of what's in your heart. What I mean by that is, I didn't know. I'll use a real example in me because it's parallel to where you are. At a time in my life, I was standing exactly where you are, The difference is by myself as opposed to around this group of potential collaborators, right, which is beautiful for you and for the rest of us. But at that time, I was just, I didn't really understand. Like, I thought I was going to be a drummer. That's what, like, if you'd asked me at 10 years old, what are you going to do in your life? If you asked my mom and dad, they'd say he's going to be a lawyer, because that's what they wanted me to be. And if you asked me, I would say I was going to be a drummer, which is what they didn't want me to be. And as I got older, in my heart, I didn't really want to be a drummer. I lived the lifestyle of playing in clubs, and I loved playing the drums, but I saw that lifestyle. I got really blessed to go that far in that early. And it doesn't matter what age we are. It's just as long as we learn it. And so I happened to learn it early, but I could have been 40 years old. You know, it doesn't matter as long as I learn it.
Yeah.
And what I learned was, in my heart, I didn't want that lifestyle for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't like technology, if you can believe it, at that time. I got terrible grades in my computer class when I was in like 8th grade. They were like, oh my God, this guy's like the last person we want in front of a computer. You fast forward 5-6 years later, and music technology is in my blood.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is like, I don't have to think about it. I don't have to consciously say, I like this. It's as natural as like the sunshine is out and it's a beautiful day. Like, that's how it feels inside. And I discovered that. And I didn't know it for a long time. So I think you've really got to search and connect with what is it that you really want to do. If money was on a tree and you could just go pick it when you needed it, and it did not attach to a career working, and so you would just spend every day doing what you love to do and your needs would be met, what would you do? And it sounds like a crazy question, and coming from a kid who grew up with nothing, really, I can tell you that it's possible. And all of my career moves were founded in that passion. And then I figured out a way to make a living from it. So I would suggest the same thing, is follow your passions and you'll find a way to make a living from it, as long as you're really clear on serving, right? Because remember, we only are compensated by what we deliver. So you deliver a great song, you'll probably make a lot of money from it because you're impacting a lot of people. You deliver a great service, you'll probably be paid well over a consistent long period of time because you're delivering high value in the service that you're delivering. But I think that starts with what you love to do, and then you're bringing forward that to the rest of the world. I think that's the foundation.
So great.
And it's not easy. It's easy to kind of understand what I'm saying, but it's a lot to kind of unpack and be, right? So take the time, be compassionate with yourself, but take those steps and do it. Yeah. And don't expect it to be easy. That's the biggest fallacy that people think, is that, oh, this should, why are there so many barriers to success? Because that's life.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Really
overcome them and follow your dreams and passion.
Yeah, great advice.
Does that help?
Yeah, that helped a lot. Thank
awesome, man. Good luck. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
So we have another question from our online audience. What's your biggest challenge when working on a song?
Well, first biggest challenge is getting great songs, right? I mean, because Julio Iglesias said once, your career starts with a great song and ends with a bad one. And I'll never forget that. And, it's really, I think the first thing is you get the best song you possibly can, right? If you're given a song, let's say I'm given a song to mix that I had nothing to do with the creation of, but now here it is to mix. You want to bring out the essence of that song. That's the mission, right? So we have all these tools. We have this incredible technology. We have experience. We have a studio. We have a speaker set up. It's all for the purpose of how do we make this song really connect.
Right.
And that's what I'm always trying to bring out in a song, is how to make it the best it possibly can be.
Wonderful.
Hi, my name's Rob. And I was wondering, because you are constantly looking at the newest cutting edge technology and aspects of the entertainment industry, are there any aspects of the industry, technology or otherwise, that you think have potential but aren't currently getting the focus that they need, that might be potential areas for up and coming people to specialize in?
Well, that's a great point. I try to always kind of see ahead, try to be in the present working on the future, right? So that balance. Sometimes the future doesn't pay, so you've got to work in the present more, but you can't lose your eye for the future. So it's a really delicate balance, especially as we get older. We've got to really understand that balance. And I think that right now, to answer your question, the buzzword is AI, right? That's everybody knows that. It's like every single possible thing you could imagine, AI. A year ago it was NFT, right? Now it's AI. It's all these acronyms kind of appear every year. But in the case of AI, it really is. Like, unlike NFT, which still we don't know how that chapter is going to be written, right? It could have another life form and come back, or it could die. We don't know. But AI is going to stay with us. It's really the beginning of that. And it's so vast. I mean, when you say AI, it can encompass literally millions of different things, right, without exaggeration. So I think first and foremost, find your lane. And then I think, yes, there will be a huge industry that's evolving, utilizing AI, based around AI. We're just seeing the beginning of it. But I also want to speak to something very, very quickly, which is that, and this isn't specifically to you and your question, but your question led me to share this with everybody because it's a global concept that I think we need to understand, especially in the entertainment business. Don't chase trends. Don't always look at, oh, that's the most popular thing, I'm running over there. Oh, this is the most popular thing, I'm running over here. You'll just run yourself in circles and you'll never get to where you want to be. You can't chase them. You got to focus on what it is that you're really passionate about, and you got to go down that lane. Now, I'm not suggesting you go down a lane that's old news. I'm not suggesting, you start manufacturing typewriters, but I am saying that you got to look at kind of what's hot and what's hip, but where's your lane in that? You being figuratively speaking, not literally, and then really drive towards that, because trends come and go. Yep. And, if you chase them, you're just not going to have a foundation. Yep. And it's a hard thing to do, because as artists, we hear things starting to get real popular. And now, everybody wants to sound like BTS one year. Everybody wants to sound like Taylor Swift another year. Like, you don't chase that. Just Taylor Swift became Taylor Swift because she followed her art and music.
Yes.
And then she became a leader. Mm-hmm. Very few will ever get to that point. But the point is they'll get somewhere and they'll lead in their lane because they're creating the trends rather than following them. So I think it's really important to just balance that.
Totally.
Wonderful.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
So, yeah, good question. So we're going to take your question. Those of you, I'm sorry we can't get to the rest of you, but those of you that are online and those of you, that still have questions, stick around afterwards or send us your questions and we'll send them over to David, okay? So last question of the day.
Hi, how are you? My name is Laura, and right now I'm doing my entertainment business master, and I'm creating my company that will be focused on arts education. Then we'll be making live events, and then we'll be making artist management. And so I would like to know, what does people get inspired about having arts education, and how could your foundation be created based on this?
Well, the foundation is, in our case, with Caroline and I and Felipe and Danny, all of us are really driving it, it's the idea of it was, in a nutshell, I went through trauma as a kid. What if when I was a kid, I had something like this drum museum to go to, right? Even if you're not into drums, it's inspiring with the instruments and the guest artists that we have. So that was the idea behind it, was to bring kids in need and to inspire people. And we did develop a curriculum that was a 13-week curriculum developed by Joe Bergamini, and now a very dear friend of ours, the late Dom Famularo, who's in the video. He just passed away. He's super close inspiration of ours, that huge loss. And he wrote the curriculum with Joe. And the whole idea behind it was basically, to your point, to keep the inspiration and the education going, Because especially as a kid, education can be synonymous with boring. And if it's boring, they're not going to learn. And if they do learn, it's going to be forced. But what if they learn in a way that they're actually excited about it? Just like they go to the playground, they're excited about learning at the same level. So that was the idea behind the foundation. It's like an adult playground for kids, right? I remember there's a famous band called Jane's Addiction, and the drummer, Stephen Perkins, visited the museum one day. We have famous drummers there like every week. And so Stephen's a great guy, and he's a character. And he came in, and he sees the museum, and he's really inspired by what we do with the kids and what we have for the drums. And he says, so, whoa, wait a second, David. Like, I need to wrap my head around this. Who's this for? And I said, well, it's for two, I guess you could put it in two lanes, Stephen. You have two types. It's rock stars and kids in need. And he goes, what's the other type?
That's great.
And so it's like, yes, rock stars are kids in need. It's the joke of the punchline. But it's true that it's really about inspiring, and it's really about educating in a manner in which all ages are impacted and educated, right? So it's not just, even though if it feels fun, they're learning. So that's why we did the curriculum, and that's why kind of the whole vision of having the drums there and, and the whole experience.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you guys for your questions.
Thank you.
So, David, that's a pretty sweet-looking drum kit you got over there. What's the story on it?
Well, that's Dave Weckle's first main drum kit. So all the drum kits we have at the Drum Museum are noted kits, most of them, not all of them, but the majority of them have some kind of rich history. Dave Weckle, for those of you who are not drummers or jazz fusion fans, is one of the greatest drummers ever. He's become a dear friend. He's been an inspiration of mine my whole life, ever since the first time I heard him. And when he was up and coming, and he went from starting out to really becoming a famous drummer. He was always a great drummer, but he became a famous drummer. He played with Simon and Garfunkel on the reunion tour. He played with Chick Corea, acoustic band, electric band. He played with Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin, the solo stuff. And he played with just a myriad of other artists. And this was the first main drum kit he had. I got it directly from Dave. And one of the things Dave did that really inspired me and helped me kind of grow and find drumming into technology is that's a hybrid kit, meaning that it looks like just an acoustic drum kit. You've seen it a million times, but there's actually triggers on it, and there's actually electronics that get triggered through certain presets that I have. And that's what Dave was one of the first guys to really bring that mainstream. So that kit incorporates what we'll call the hybrid kit.
Wow.
Electronic and acoustic, and it's an amazing kit.
Wow. So I'm really curious. I mean, we've got a drum kit. We've got a drummer.
A rusty drummer.
I mean, what's it sound like?
Well, does the audience actually want to hear that kit
if you
play?
guys want to hear it. All right. Hey.
Somewhat convincing.
Let's do it.
All right, you want to play some drums?
All
right, let's do it.
I'll live through you. All right, how about it?
All right, guys. Dave Weckle's first drum kit, Yamaha with Zildjian and Sabian cymbals, and listen for some of the electronic things and some of the things that this kit can do. Enjoy.
Thank you guys for coming out today, and thank you, David. It was amazing.
Good.